Hi folks, we've got a running issue with this Vauxhall Signum 1.9 CDTI. This is the 150 brake horsepower version. The problem we're having is on acceleration from standstill, it won't pull away, it's totally sluggish, and through the rev range you have to put your foot flat down on the floor and it accelerates so slowly, there's no power there basically at all. I did do a reading on it on the my fault diagnostic tool, and it came up with an air leak issue. So whilst having a look around for an air leak, I actually noticed there was a problem with the swirl flaps. So today we're going to have to take the inlet manifold off and try and get the swirl flaps out, and that involves a hell of a lot of work stripping down this engine. So let's make a start. So this is the 1.9 CDTI engine, the 150 brake horsepower version. You can tell that because the oil filler cap is on the right hand side. If this was the 120 brake horsepower version, the oil filler cap would be on that side. So that's how we can tell straight away that this is the 150 brake horsepower version. You have to remove the top cover just to gain access to some things. And where we need to be looking, or what my initial investigation was to look for any air leak on the intake, because it was coming up as an air leak was on the air intake. So I checked all that, couldn't see anything there, started the engine up, and the swirl flaps are just behind the fuel rail, right down in there. You'll find a bar which joins up all four swirl flaps. I don't know if you can see that metal bar in there. And the swirl flaps are actually connected via that rod, and that rod moves backwards and forwards and opens and closes the swirl flaps on the inlet manifold. On my version, or on this one here, I don't know whether you can see that one there, the little metal bracket is not sitting on the swirl flap at all, it's jumped off. The one at the end is totally leaking down there, I don't know if you can see that. This one here doesn't move at all, and the one at the end I think is also seized up as well. Very hard to see. But to get that out, to get the inlet manifold off, which is this bit here, most of this has to be dismantled. You have to take the timing chest cover off, and you don't have to take the timing belt off, but the diesel pump, which is operated by the timing belt, you have to lock the diesel pump sprocket in position for you to be able to remove that. The EGR valve has to come off. All the pipe work and wiring has to be unclipped and lifted out the way, and also there's a swirl pot down here somewhere, down there, that's got to come off. So basically there's a lot of stripping down to do here, a lot of pipe work to come off. The airbox has to come out obviously to gain access to these bolts to take the timing chest cover off. Hell of a lot of work. I'm going to make a start on it now, and I'll talk you through it as I go. So initially, first thing I'm going to take off is going to be the airbox, and I'm also going to take off the EGR valve and then start unplugging some of this wiring loom here. Just follow the connectors around and unplug them where necessary. So that's the start of it. So I'll see you in a minute. Right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Allen keys to take out around the perimeter of the casing. The lowest one is obviously down there. And then you've got behind the engine mount here, you've got another 2 bolts there, which is obviously these ones 13 mils. Now this one comes straight out, but this one, as you can see, it bottoms out on the bottom of the engine mounting bracket there, so you don't really want to have to go to the hassle of taking it off. So obviously someone's had this off before, that's the case in there. I presume it used to be like that, and as you can see the bottom part has actually been broken away, so that you can actually remove this without having to remove the engine mounting. So you might want to just give that a pull there and just possibly break that lug there. It may even be broken already, depending if someone else has been in here before. Otherwise, to remove this, you've got to jack the engine up and take the weight of the engine and all that sort of stuff. So it's up to you what way you want to go. I've just opted just to pull it out. It was already broken anyway. Someone's already had this off before. So that's give us a lot more space here now. And on this front pulley here, this is the diesel pump pulley, which is obviously tied up to the cam belt. We don't really want to have to take the cam belt off. But on these, you've got 2 holes on here, which line up to 2 holes that correspond in the engine block. What you need to do is to screw 2 screws through there. You have to line them up first of all with that pulley. 2 of these holes here will line up with 2 holes behind. And then you put 2 bolts in, long bolts, and that actually holds that pulley in place. Because you're going to need to undo this main nut here and pull the fuel pump out backwards through here, and not forgetting that on that shaft that comes through there is a woodruff key, or a little key there, which you don't want to lose or drop, and that needs to go back in so that the pulley connects to the shaft. So that's one thing you're going to have to do. That's not right yet because I'm not going to line this up yet, and to do this, don't go turning this pulley, turn it from the crank. So turn the crank round until you get them holes line up, and then you can obviously leave the belt in tension, because the pulley gets bolted directly to the back of the casing there, so that you haven't got to detension the belt. Right, let's try and show you as much as I can. I've got a 19mm socket there on a 3/8 drive, and I'm going to come in from the top and get on the lower crank pulley, and I'm going to be turning the crank clockwise until I get these holes lined up where they need to be. I'll try and show you as I'm doing it. The nearest I can sort of demonstrate is the holes have got to be a 10-2 position, if that makes any sense. Let me show you. So if I get you in there, can you just see the outer hole, that top hole there, needs to line up with, there's a thread behind it, and likewise on that side you've got the outer, that hole there lines up with a thread at the back there. And I've got these casing nuts there. These are the bolts that come out of the casing. And let's just see if that lines up. Right, it's not quite lined up. I don't know whether you can see that, so I've got to turn it a little bit more until that just lines up, and then I can screw them in. And those are just 2 of the casing bolts that come out from around here. So I'm just going to line them up and screw them 2 bolts in there, and then I'll come back to you. Right, so the way I approach this, I put my left hand down on the crank to turn the crank, and I put my right hand just feeling that bolt, and I'm just turning the crank slightly until you can feel the bolt actually drop into the hole. So that was the easiest way I found of doing it, and that seemed to work a treat. So then once I'm in location now, as you can see, I just start turning that bolt in. I'll get the other bolt and just locate that. That should go straight into the other hole as well. And as you can see now, I've got that first bolt in, the second one screws in the treat, and these bolts are just the right length to be able to screw and hold that in place. So don't worry about them being too long or not long enough. So you just screw them in. Once it's lined up, that will actually lock that pulley in place, and that means that we can undo that big nut afterwards at some time when we need to do it, and then that will allow us to withdraw the diesel pump. And as I say, don't forget that on that shaft going through, you'll have a little woodruff key there, and you don't want to be losing that because that's got to go back in afterwards. And just to give you a rough idea, it looks like about 10 to, in actual fact it's about 10-3, them 2 bolt holes. So that's the location when you're turning the crankshaft. You want to be looking at them outer holes being at about 10-3. I said it was 10-2 before. No need to worry about the timing or locking the crankshaft or camshaft or whatever. The belt is under tension, it stays under tension once we've undone that nut. Right, so this is the EGR valve on here. That's the rubber bung there for the engine cover. Let's get that off. So on this we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts there, 4 10mm by the looks of it, and also 2 there, larger bolts there. I think they're 13s or maybe 12s, I don't know yet. And they disconnect the actual EGR valve. Plus this end of it, you've also got the electrical connector down there, which you've got to undo. So I'm going to take this off now by undoing them bolts I've just shown you. Right, okay, just remember you've got the long stud that goes in that one with a nut behind it, and that also holds on your bracket for your engine cover, so that goes in that position. Take that stud out, and these 2 13mm, when you do undo both of these, the pipe underneath has a gasket which can drop out and you can lose that, so just be careful that you don't lose the gasket. I've disconnected the electrical connector already, so if I just undo that one. I've had had this EGR valve out before and give it a good clean. So it'd be interesting to see how dirty, oh, get up there, it is. And people doing the EGR delete as well, but I don't think that's an MOT pass anymore. So let's just undo that. A bit tricky about clipping now, I could get that out of the way. There we go. Pull that pipe out there for a minute, just pull it over. Just a little bit more access. It's going to have to come off anyway, that pipe. So let's just get that in there. This is my first time of doing this, by the way, folks, so I'm not an expert, I'm just a do-it-yourselfer. I'm trying to approach it in a methodical manner. And did you see that pipe just drop in? And as I said to you before, there is a washer underneath there which does drop. That again is a 10mm on a stud, so you either need a long 10mm or a spanner. Lucky enough, I've got a long 10mm. So let's undo that second one underneath there. So the two long studs go this side. Oh, look at the state of that. Right, well, it doesn't appear to have the sealing ring in there, but can you see the state of that EGR valve? Look. That was totally clean. I totally cleaned that. That's what running around at low speeds apparently does for diesels. See the other pipe there, look, as you can see. That's the EGR valve out. Right, so that's off now, and now's the time to sort of unplug and dismantle a host of different things, which is pipes and electrical connectors and things down the back here as well, things like swirl pots. I've still got to pull the pump out of the back there, I haven't done that yet. There's also fuel pipes and stuff, and these big inlets have got to come off, and you've just got to feel your way through it. And also what you need to do is to drain your water out, and you do that by the little tap on the radiator on the bottom of the radiator, right down there. So drain the water out, and if you don't do that, you can get water going to your inlet manifold, and you don't want to do that, so just make sure that's okay. And also, don't forget, I didn't mention it earlier on, but do disconnect your battery. You don't want that to flashing anything over when you're working on there and possibly try to spin the engine. So disconnect your battery as well. So I'm just going to take a bit of time now, unplug and pull off hoses and things like that, drain the water out as I said to you, and I'll come back to you afterwards and tell you what we've actually done and where we've got up to. Right, just pulling off a few wires. These little things come off by just pushing on them little tabs down there and then just pulling them up. They push off like that. That's all right. They come off nice and easily. We've got the fuel rail again just by pulling that back, and the temperature sensor probe. As you can probably see with this one, I moved that tab, pushed that tab down there, and I was able to pull that off of the thermostat housing, as you can probably see there. But can you see the state of them wires there? Them wires are bare there, look. So that's going to need some sort of a repair. Well, look at the insulation on them. Look, that would have caused us some fault codes as well, look. Or some shorting out. All the wires are totally bare there, look. So that's just something else I've come up against. I think this is the throttle body here, which again, there's another electrical connector right underneath there. I'm not too sure exactly if I can reach that at this moment in time. But what I'll do is I'll unbolt it with these Allen keys there, pull it off, maybe be able to spin it upside down and take the connector off. But the amount of crap inside there is actually terrible. So it's going to all need a good clean out as well when I get it off. So that's where I am so far. As you can see, look, the loom's loosening off now. Cable tie holding it on there, obviously. But even down to the front there, I'll probably have to just lever it back out of the way. Once I disconnect that one there. That's the thing with old cars as well, you see. They break cables very easily. So you've got to be careful, because you might cause another problem. So that, look, that's going to be all loose then. Once I get that one out from behind there, under the throttle body there, so to speak, there. So that's where I'm at. I'm just going to carry on, and I'll see you again in a minute. Right, so here's the throttle body. This is the orientation it comes off in. You've got two shorter Allen keys at the top, one there and one there, and hidden just below the actual venturi is the longer one, which sits in there and bolts to the engine. So you've got to take them three out. Once you're taking them three out, you're able to pull it out, turn it upside down, and you just pull a little yellow clip off, pull it forward, and then you can pull the connector off. So that's it. And as you can see as well, that's really crapped up as well. Look at the crap in there, look. You see that falling off, look, all around there, look. Absolutely filthy. So that will get a good clean as well. There is a gasket that comes off there, by the way, as well, folks, onto the inlet manifold itself. And look at the crap that's built up on that as well, look. Terrible. So that's got to be relocated, obviously, before we put it back on. So we're now getting our first glimpse at the inlet manifold there. And as you can see, look at the carbon. Look at that, look at the carbon build up in there as well, look. That's all got to be cleaned out as well, look. And don't forget, our job is to get that inlet manifold off and basically blank off the swirl flaps. So we're getting there now. I've pulled a few hoses off, as you can see. I haven't run the water out yet. I've pulled that one off of there. We're getting not too far off it now, so I've got a few more things to unbolt here. Just use your common sense, have a look around. I can't tell you exactly everything that's got to come off, because this is my first time of doing it as well. So we're working our way through it. I'm going to be draining down the water any second now, and then I'll carry on just disconnecting stuff. I've disconnected that coolant rail there. As you can see, that's the coolant rail that comes through there and bolts down to the inlet manifold. So that's just been lifted up. I've not disconnected any hoses off of that yet, so I'm not sure if I have to. I think I might have to, actually. Looking down this side, there is a hose that connects down into there. So whether or not that's the reason why we have to drain it down, I'm not too sure. But I will drain it down anyway and just carry on unplugging hoses and pulling wires off until I can see where I am. That bracket there, obviously, that bolts onto the inlet manifold, something to do with the fuel there, so I'm going to have to unbolt that away as well. I'm not at the stage yet where I'm undoing the bolts for the diesel pump, because there's more stuff that's got to come away from behind the back here. There's a swirl pot here and some more hoses and all that, so I'll get to that as I do it, and anything you need to know, I'll let you know. Right, okay then, so I've just disconnected the fuel diesel hose by just literally undoing that clip that was on there. It's pinged off down there somewhere, I can't find it at the moment. I swiveled it round and just pushed in either side there, and that enabled me. There's two little chains there, as you can see, which you need to push in before you can pull that off. You get a little bit of diesel come out, but that's all you'll get to come out of there. I can now basically unbolt that off of the inlet manifold, I suppose, and get this out the way so that I can gain access to below it. So that's the reason why I've got to take this off. Right, I've just pulled off this clip here, and all I've done was just put a little tang underneath it, give it a pull, and then that basically pulls that clip off there like that. I'm not going to be able to put these clips back on again, so I'll probably replace these with Jubilee clips, because I haven't got the proper tool to do them. So that's them clips there. That enables me now to hopefully be able to slide that pipe off like that. Just get that underneath there and give it a bit of a wiggle, break the seal, so to speak. There we go. And that can then give me a bit more access to get underneath here to get these bolts off, and that means that I can pull this pipe now out of the way, and I'm now starting to get more access to my actual diesel pump there. So I'm going to undo this bracket now, and there's a big pot underneath, I think, which has got to come off. This is another sensor here, which I won't take off yet. I think that's going to be absolutely filthy, so I'll have to clean that and all. That's just one screw to take out and pull the sensor out. That's the inlet manifold. Is it the map sensor or MAF sensor? I can't remember which one of them it is, but that will need a clean as well. So these again are, I think, 5mm Allen keys, as with the rest of the car. The bits that I've taken off so far, they're all 5mm. Second one's over there. Right, that's them two out. That should give us a bit more access now. Yep. Again, we've got them clips on there. If I want to get that right out of the way, let's Put a bit of rag under there for the moment. Does that pipe come off of there? Yeah. Again, it's corroded on. There we go, so that one's off of there, look. So that might be okay. Just to leave floating there might be enough space for that. For me to get on there. So now I can see underneath there, I can see the connector for the diesel pump there. Let's get that out of the way, look. There's that little yellow thing that's got to be pulled up. Yeah, little clip, typical of Vauxhalls. Lift that up like that. And then you can just wiggle that upwards. So basically I've just sussed that out as well. Once you pull the yellow thing up, you have to press that black thing in. And that releases it. So there we go, that's the diesel pump. Electrical supply released. There's also a metal banjo or union down there that's got to be undone. So I'm going to undo that now. That can probably all stay connected, but that banjo's definitely got to come undone there. So I'm going to undo that. And then I can see one fixing bolt there. There's one more down there, this side. And I think there's one more down here somewhere. And that should allow me then to pull that, after I've undone that nut, to withdraw it. So before we go any further, I want to see if I can undo our big nut there. I think this is done up to 55 Newton meters or something like that. So what we're looking for is for this not to turn. So let's try and undo this. And the crank shouldn't turn. There we go. Right, so undo our big nut there. And as you can see, the belt's still tensioned, nothing turned. So when I undo my 3 bolts at the back and that union, I'm hoping that that's going to go back. But don't forget, on that shaft, there's a little woodruff key. And you don't want to lose that, so be very careful with losing that. Right, so I cracked that union down there, as you can probably see. Got this solid pipe out that goes from there up to the inlet manifold, so that comes right out. That's a 14mm nut down there. I don't know what that one was, because I think it's a 15 or a 16, because I've done that with an adjustable. What else is there? This pipe here that goes under the fuel rail, so to speak. I've just popped that clip off there, so that I can pull that out of the way, and then that can come hopefully right through under there. There we go. There we go. Come on, through we go. Then that can come right out of the way now, and that will come out with the fuel pump itself. So I've done one of the bolts there. I've got one more to do down there and one more around the back, and then hopefully this should be able to pull backwards and then lift up and out of the way over here. Right, so I've got all 3 nuts off, and I'm not sure if it's going to pop out. I might have to just shock the sprocket. I've got a soft hammer here. Ah, it's got it. There we go, I felt it move then. It was just tight on the shaft. Now, as I said to you, there's a woodruff key in here. There we go, that's it, it's gone. Now, as I said, I'm looking for that little woodruff key on that shaft. It might still be stuck in the... In fact, it's stuck in the actual sprocket. So that's fine, I'm going to leave it in there. And this should now, hopefully, lift out of the way. It can only go back in one way. There we go. That can just sit down there. And can you see that little key? Hold on, let's get the light on there for you. That little half-shaped key is in the sprocket still, so that's fine. And one thing we have to do before we can withdraw this manifold, once we undo the bolts, we've got to take this bolt out by locking 2 nuts together onto it and spinning it out, because you can't pull the manifold backwards while that's in the way. So as you can see, the belt is still tensioned, the pulley's not moved because it's been bolted down, and that's the way to do it, folks. Right, I'm going to remove this bracket down here now. There's a 1, 2, I think there's 5 bolts in total maybe to hold that on. And apparently this canister, which has got to come out as well, when you loosen the brackets off, the canister is held in by a bolt at the back here, behind. So once we've got that canister out of the way and this bracket, that should be it. So I'm going to undo these bolts now all around there, slide this back, and then hopefully it's just all the manifold bolts then, and we can take the manifold out. Right folks, this bit was a pain in the arse. Let's just get this out. Hold on. To get this bracket out is a bloody nuisance, because this canister is fixed through a hole there. It's fixed by these two top bolts, which are on top of the canister, which isn't a problem. But there's a bolt right there, which you can only undo from the inside, and you can only get a tiny little spanner in there, of what I did, and get it little turns at a time. But you've got to get this bracket out before you can take the inlet manifold off, because behind it there's some fixings. So I've managed to take all the nuts and bolts off for the inlet manifold. That's these ones here. Some are studs, as you can see. They're all 12 mils by the way, and the rest of them are nuts. So I've got all them out now. I've got to try and move things out of the way so you can see. See, now you can push that actuator, that pressure pot or whatever it's called, that swirl pot, you can push that back. You ain't got to take that out. And now I've got access to this is the actuator below for the swirl flaps, I gather, and I can undo these bolts here now. I think there's one at the bottom as well, and that's all that's holding the manifold in now. So I'm going to have to undo these now. I'll give it a tap, but it's still tight, because as I say, that's what appears to be holding it in. And I've still got to take off that stud, because I need to withdraw that to pull it back that way, but I'll do that when I get a chance. I've also drained the water down now. Rather than go underneath and all the hassle of that, I just drained it down from the thermostat housing. I undone that and let the water drain to below the cylinder head level. Right, I'm going to persevere, and I'll see you in a minute. Right folks, I've had to lock these two nuts together, these two 12 mils, and I've now got my stud out. And the reason why I had to do it right now, just put that out there, is because I forgot to undo a manifold bolt. Let's get the light up there, hold on. Let's get the light over here somewhere. I had one more 12 mil down here which I couldn't take out because of that stud. So hopefully this 12 mil should be the last one for the inlet manifold. You need a combination of extensions, a couple of 12 mil span or 12 mil spanner, a quarter drive 12 mil with its own little extension to get the whole set out. Very tricky, but I've done it all with my hands, obviously. It's not ready yet. This should be the last one. I'm not too sure about the mechanism yet for the swirl flaps. Right, there we go, that's the last one out, folks. Let's put that up there and let's get you on a tripod. Right, as I say, I'm not too sure about the flaps, but the manifold should be off now. It's just a matter of getting it out of the way. Alright, there we go, look at that, look. I can see the flap motor still connected. I might have to disconnect the electrical connector for that. Let's get it out there. It's got to be fed through, I think. Yeah, that's the connector down there. You can't see it yet, but I've just got to disconnect it. Hold on. Just pull back yellow pin again and wiggle off, I think. Where's my little hook? Hold on, folks. Look, pull the yellow thing right out.
Do you know what you're doing?
No, I don't know what I'm doing. The manifold's actually out now. The thing holding me is the electrical socket, as you can see. Maybe if I spin that round like that, so I could pull the ball and socket off of that actuator, I suppose, but out of all the things to make it awkward, it's a bloody electrical socket. Just a ping off. Come on, folks. Let's get a screwdriver on it. Come on. Again, it's probably why it's never been out. It's coming off now. Here we go. Here we go, look at that. That's it, look. That stupid electrical socket. Let's get that out of the way. Oh. There we go. Ah. It did separate anyway, look. Alright folks, so this is it. The inlet manifold. And those are the swirl flaps. Now, as you can probably see there, they're all disconnected and broken. That one's popped out and broken off the shaft. The only little plastic things that hook into them. If I turn them, look. You see? That's the swirl flap there, look. And they're leaking like anything. That one wasn't even connected, look. That one had dropped off as well. That wasn't even connected. There was only one actually connected, which is that one at the end there. And that one was obviously leaking and letting air in as well. So that's where the lack of performance probably coming from. This whole thing. So we've got to take this bar off. We're not going to need that anymore. And we've got to pop these out. But first of all, we'll split this manifold down. Look at the carbon build up in there. Look at that, look. That's solid. Solid carbon, look. So this is going to need stripping out. I don't think this one comes apart, does it? Yes, it does. This one actually comes in half, so I'm probably going to end up taking that apart. Yeah, look in there, look, with the... let's get you out in the sunlight, hold on. Can you see that, look? That's the EGR valve, where the EGR valve was, look. Unbelievable, totally blocked up, look. Absolutely terrible, look at that, look. There you go. And that sensor, I think it's the map sensor. I might be wrong, but that's got to come out, and that'll be absolutely filthy as well. Well, there you go, folks. It's a dirty job around the back of the engine, and it's also pretty awkward to get to. The manifold bolts were all 12 mils, and as I say, we only had a problem with getting off that bracket that sits behind with that swirl pot there. It's quite awkward. You have to get the 8mm bolt from the back of the bracket before you can take the bracket out, and it's very fiddly work, but I did it all with my hands anyway, so I'm sure if I can do it and you'll feel pretty confident, you can probably do it as well. A lot of cleaning up now. That's going to come in part 2, where we clean it up and reinstall it. We've got to get the kit for blanking them off and find out about the mechanism, because you still need that mechanism connected in that motor so that it doesn't throw a code up. So that's all coming up in the next video, so don't forget, check out my other videos in my Vauxhall Signum playlist as well, and also hit the subscribe button, ring the little notification bell and set your preferences to all. That way you'll get notified every time we upload a video. Thanks very much, I'll see you in the next video, and until then, bye for now.